Have you ever stopped to consider how wealthy are you really compared to the rest of the world? Now that's a thought-provoking question, isn't it? When we talk about wealth, we often picture mansions, luxury cars, and extravagant lifestyles. But wealth, in its true essence, goes beyond the material possessions we accumulate. It's about access to resources, opportunities, and a standard of living that many around the globe can only dream of. Take a moment to consider this. Even the poorest Americans, those struggling to make ends meet, are considered wealthy on a global scale. Shocking, isn't it? But let's delve into why that is. In America, poverty is often seen as an inability to afford the latest iPhone, take vacations, or eat out at fancy restaurants. Yes, there are those who face food insecurity and homelessness, but these are not the norms. In contrast, poverty in many third-world countries means a lack of access to clean water, basic healthcare, and education. It means living on less than $2 a day in conditions that are unimaginable to most of us. In fact, according to the World Bank, nearly 10% of the world's population lives in extreme poverty, surviving on less than $1.90 a day. That's a far cry from the American poverty line, which for a family of four is over $25,000 annually. So while we grumble about our slow Wi-Fi or outdated gadgets, millions around the world grapple with maintaining the bare minimum to survive. It's not about belittling the struggles we face in America, but rather, it's about gaining a broader perspective of wealth and poverty. Our perception of poverty is often skewed by our immediate surroundings. When we compare our lives to those of our neighbors, we fail to realize the abundance we live in. Access to clean water, education, healthcare, and the internet. These are luxuries for many, necessities for us, and signs of wealth that we often overlook. So, are we truly poor, or are we simply ignorant of the vast wealth that surrounds us? Imagine waking up tomorrow in a completely different world, one where your daily struggles are not about paying bills, but surviving. Let's take a journey and compare two lives. We'll start in the heart of America with Joe. Joe's a hardworking guy, but he's considered poor by American standards. He lives in a small apartment. It's not much, but it's his. He has running water, electricity, and even though it's not always reliable, he has internet access. His meals are often simple, but he rarely goes to bed hungry. His children attend public school, where they get a basic education, and he has a healthcare plan, albeit a basic one, that covers them in case of emergencies. Now let's travel thousands of miles away to a small village in a third-world country. Meet Amina. Amina's life is a stark contrast to Joe's. She lives in a small hut made of mud and straw. There's no electricity, and running water is a luxury she can only dream of. She spends hours each day walking miles to fetch water for her family. Her children don't go to school because there's none nearby. Healthcare? That's a luxury they can't afford. Her daily struggle is not about paying bills, but ensuring her family survives another day. In comparing these two lives, it's clear there are stark differences. But there are also similarities. Both Joe and Amina work hard, often in jobs that offer little security and even less pay. They both worry about their children's futures. They both have dreams and aspirations that often seem out of reach due to their financial circumstances. However, even at his poorest, Joe, by virtue of where he was born, has access to basic amenities that Amina can only dream of. His children have the opportunity to get an education, something Amina's children may never have. Joe's life, while tough, is still filled with opportunities that are simply non-existent for Amina. The disparity is shocking, isn't it? But it's our reality. The American dream has always been a beacon of hope, but what does it mean for those living the global nightmare? The American dream, it's a phrase that has been etched into the minds of millions, if not billions, around the globe. It's the promise of opportunity, success, and prosperity through hard work in a society where upward mobility is a reality. It's the dream of owning a home, sending your kids to college, and retiring comfortably. But let's take a moment and compare this dream to the harsh realities faced by many in third-world countries. The daily grind of extreme poverty is a world apart from even the most challenging circumstances faced by the poorest Americans. Imagine living in a place where clean water is a luxury, where food is an uncertainty, and where basic healthcare is out of reach. Education, often seen as a stepping stone to a better life, is often sacrificed in the pursuit of basic survival. This is the global nightmare, a stark contrast to the American dream. Even the most economically challenged Americans have access to resources that are unimaginable to those in extreme poverty. Public assistance programs, food banks, homeless shelters, and free public education offer a lifeline. There's a safety net, however imperfect, that simply doesn't exist for many in the developing world. The poorest Americans have opportunities to change their circumstances, opportunities that are a distant dream for many in third world countries. They live in a society where the rule of law generally prevails, where their rights are protected, and where they have a voice. So, let's not belittle the struggles faced by those in poverty, wherever they may be, but let's also not lose sight of the stark differences in circumstance and opportunity. The American dream may not be perfect, but for many around the world, it's a dream worth dreaming. So does the American dream still hold true? Or is it just a mirage in the global desert of poverty? We often speak of poverty as if it's a universal experience, but is it really? This question, simple yet profound, invites us to examine our perceptions, our biases, and indeed our very understanding of what it means to be poor. In the grand tapestry of life, where we stand often determines what we see. The lens through which we perceive poverty is frequently colored by our own experiences and circumstances. It's easy to look at our own lives, see what we lack, and feel poor. But this feeling, this illusion of poverty, is often just that, an illusion. Let's consider the United States, a nation often hailed as the land of opportunity. Here, even those living below the poverty line have access to amenities that many in the developing world can only dream of. Clean water, electricity, a roof over their heads, and even the luxury of a mobile phone. These are not mere conveniences, but basic necessities that are out of reach for billions of people worldwide. By global standards, even the poorest Americans are considered wealthy. The global poverty line, as defined by the World Bank, is a daily income of less than $1.90. In stark contrast, the American poverty line for a single individual is around $12 per day, over 6 times higher. Yet, it is not just a question of numbers. It is a question of perspective. It is about recognizing that wealth and poverty are relative concepts, intertwined with our cultural, social, and personal contexts. It is about understanding that our perception of poverty is seldom absolute, but rather relative to those around us. What we consider poverty in one part of the world might be perceived as wealth in another. This is not to minimize the very real struggles faced by many, but rather to highlight the importance of perspective in our understanding of poverty. So are we truly poor, or are we simply blinded by our own relative wealth? Perhaps the answer lies not in the size of our bank accounts, but in the breadth of our perspectives. How can we change our perspective to truly understand the global wealth disparity? As we delve deeper into this conversation, we come to realize that perspective is a powerful tool. It can either limit our understanding or broaden our horizons. So how do we use this tool effectively to grasp the reality of the world's wealth disparity? First off, we need to step out of our comfort zone. We have to push aside the veil of our daily lives and look at the world beyond our immediate surroundings. We live in a global village, and our brothers and sisters in this village lead lives vastly different from ours. Next, we must educate ourselves. Knowledge is power, after all. Read about the lives of people in different parts of the world, listen to their stories, understand their struggles, and appreciate their triumphs. This will not only help us to understand the disparity, but also to empathize with those who are less fortunate. Thirdly, let's engage in conversations. Start discussions with friends, family, and even strangers about the issue. The more we talk about it, the more it becomes a part of our collective consciousness. And when it does, we can begin to influence change. Lastly, we need to act. Change begins with us. Whether it's by donating to charities, volunteering, or voting for policies that aim to reduce wealth inequality, every action counts. We can't just stand by and watch. We have to be a part of the solution. By shifting our perspective, we can truly comprehend the extent of the global wealth disparity. It's not just about numbers and statistics, but about the lives of real people. And once we understand this, we can take steps to make a difference. Remember, wealth is relative, and even the poorest among us are rich by global standards. It's all a matter of perspective.